Hey there, in this lesson we are going to talk about cellular respiration. So our objective for this lesson is to analyze the relationship between biochemical processes and energy use, and by the end of this lesson you should be able to use models to illustrate how cellular respiration, both aerobic and anaerobic, transforms chemical energy into ATP. So starting off, just a quick recap on the process of cellular respiration, which is the process the cell uses to break down sugar and harvest the stored energy from the sugar into a usable energy form called ATP. So our cells cannot actually use sugar itself as a form of energy. It's just the storage molecule. So cellular respiration is the process of actually getting the energy out from that sugar molecule and into a usable form that our cells can use, ATP. So just like photosynthesis, but kind of opposite. So photosynthesis was taking light energy and creating the stored energy, creating glucose. So that was kind of like an energy input process. And cellular respiration is the opposite. It's an energy output or extraction process. We say that it is an aerobic process. Aerobic means with oxygen. So oxygen is required in order for this process to occur. So aerobic cellular respiration actually occurs in three phases: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation, which I will from now on refer to as ETC. Again, you do not need to be super familiar with these three phases, but we will just kind of touch on them very briefly, because just to kind of see how the process of aerobic cellular respiration occurs. All three of these phases do take place within the mitochondria, but they take place in different parts of the mitochondria. And so we can actually see in our picture over here the products of cellular respiration. So we produce carbon dioxide, water, and then about 36 to 38 molecules of ATP. It just kind of depends on, your metabolism. So, cellular respiration, again, kind of occurring in three phases: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and ETC. So the overall reaction, if we put all three of those together, is to take glucose and break it down, and then we build a molecule called ATP. Okay, so we actually start, right, this reaction with two reactants. We need a molecule of glucose and we need 6 molecules of oxygen. So those are our inputs, okay? And then energy is actually released, right, from this reaction, right over here on the left. So this reaction of putting in glucose and oxygen, and then the energy that's left over powers, right, the reaction on the right, which does require a little bit of an energy input. So it's kind of confusing, but in your notes, right, you can see how glucose, right, and oxygen, they're going into the mitochondria, and then what's coming out is that carbon dioxide, water, and then ATP. Okay, so those are our products of cellular respiration. So just kind of looking a little bit into our mitochondria. So all eukaryotic cells have a mitochondria. So plant, animal, fungi, and protists. So even, right here, we're going to underline it, even plants have a mitochondria, which means plants perform cellular respiration. Oh my gosh, I'll say it again. Plants perform cellular respiration. They do both photosynthesis and respiration. But prokaryotes, they do not have a mitochondria. They can perform some of these reactions to help them get energy to make ATP, but they use their cell membranes, and it's just a slightly different process. The main function of the mitochondria, again, is to break down that glucose or sugar molecule and then to use that energy to build an ATP molecule, right? The batteries of the cell. And again, we say it is aerobic because oxygen is required in order for this reaction to occur. Okay, and again, you typically get about 36 molecules of ATP for every single glucose molecule that runs through this process. So a lot of ATP is produced. Just like chloroplasts, mitochondria also have their own DNA. They have a single circular chromosome of DNA that contains the recipes needed to build the proteins. Oops, and I forgot to change this to say mitochondria. That's okay. And mitochondria also have their own ribosomes, right? And again, we know ribosomes build proteins, right? So if you have ribosomes to build proteins, you have to have DNA so that you have the recipe, right, for how to build that protein. So mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own DNA and they have their own ribosomes. Now into the actual parts of the mitochondria where the process of cellular respiration occurs. The first main part of the mitochondria is called the cristae. So this is the inner membrane folds. Okay, this is where a lot of cellular respiration occurs. There is a lot of surface area, right? Because you're folding, you're going back and forth. So there's more room for all of the enzymes to allow for ATP to be made, right? Which is again the main product of respiration. And then the mitochondria also has, right, a double membrane, just like, right, our cells. Okay, we have a cell membrane. The mitochondria, right, also has that phospholipid bilayer, right, that allows for the movement of molecules in and out of the organelle. It also allows or enables the mitochondria to create a buildup of electrons, which helps to power the entire process of cellular respiration. Again, you do not need to know which part of the mitochondria is used for the ETC or any of the other specific parts of cellular respiration, but it's just kind of helpful to know the different parts to give us that like grander picture in our head. So that is it for these notes on cellular respiration. If you have any questions or concerns, just let me know.